The air conditioner hummed inside the county clerk's office. Olivia Bennet stood there in a limited edition Chanel suit, 10-centimeter stilettos under her feet, a winner's smile hanging at the corner of her mouth. She tossed the final divorce decree onto the table in front of me. "Ethan Carter. Sign it. Stop wasting time." I lowered my eyes to that thin piece of paper. The red seal stamped across it. 3 years of marriage were about to end in this moment. Olivia's voice was filled with impatience. "Once you sign, I'm going straight to give Mason the status he deserves. He's been with me through building my company for the past 3 years. He's suffered too much." Mason. That 25-year-old male assistant. A full 8 years younger than her. I looked up at the woman who had once sworn she would grow old with me. There was not the slightest trace of reluctance in her eyes. Only urgency and coldness. I picked up the pen and signed my name on the divorce agreement. My handwriting was neat. Not a single stroke hesitated. Olivia immediately grabbed the divorce decree. Without even glancing at me, she turned and walked out. Her heels struck the marble floor with crisp, sharp clicks. That sound felt like a celebration. A celebration of finally being free from this marriage. I remained seated, took out my phone, and dialed a number. Legal department. "It's Ethan Carter. Within 3 days. Remove Aurora Media from the industry. Terminate every partnership. Cut off every resource channel. And investigate every financial transaction from the company over the past 3 years. I want to see every account." Olivia, who had just reached the door, froze. She whipped around. The smile on her face hardened. 1 hour earlier, I had been sitting in the CEO's office at Carter Group. My assistant knocked and came in, wearing a strange expression. "Mr. Carter. Mrs. Carter is downstairs. She says she has something important to discuss with you." I glanced at the time. 3 in the afternoon. At this hour, Olivia should have been in a meeting at her own company. Send her up. The office door opened, and Olivia walked in. Her makeup was especially polished today. Her lipstick was her favorite true red, the color she only wore for important occasions. "Ethan, we need to talk." She sat down on the couch, graceful and composed. 3 years of life among billionaires had transformed her from an ordinary employee at a small company into a socialite whose every movement carried a kind of expensive elegance. "Talk about what?" I set down the document in my hand. Olivia took a deep breath. "Let's get divorced." The office fell so quiet I could hear the traffic outside the windows. I looked at her and waited for her to continue. "We haven't been happy these past 3 years. You know that." Her voice was calm, as if she were simply stating a fact. "You're busy with the company all day. I have my own career to manage. There hasn't been any love between us for a long time." I leaned back in my chair. So we should part on good terms. Peacefully. Olivia took a document from her purse. "This is the divorce agreement I had drafted. Take a look." I took it and flipped through a few pages. The agreement was simple. Premarital assets stayed with their original owners. There were no shared marital assets. On the surface, she really did seem to want a clean and peaceful separation. "What's the reason?" I asked. "There has to be a reason." Olivia bit her lip. "I met someone more suitable." "Who?" "That's none of your concern. Our marriage was basically an alliance anyway. Ending it now is normal." She said it lightly. 3 years ago, Olivia Bennet had still been a junior planner at Meridian Media. We met at a business reception. She walked over to me with a glass of champagne. "Mr. Carter. I'm Olivia Bennet. I've heard a lot about you." Back then, her eyes shone with ambition and desire. Unlike other women who only knew how to flatter, she talked to me about trends in the media industry and where the future was heading. I found her interesting. Later, we met more and more often. She always appeared at exactly the right moment. When I worked overtime late into the night, she brought me hot coffee. When I returned from business trips, she waited for me at the airport. Half a year later, she cried and told me she had been wronged at work and wanted to quit to start her own business. "Ethan, I want to build something of my own. But I don't have the startup capital. I don't want to ask you for help, but I truly don't know what to do." She cried beautifully. So fragile and helpless. My heart softened. "What do you want to do?" "A media company. I've been in this industry for 5 years. I have experience and resources. I gave her $3 million in startup funding. She was overwhelmed with gratitude. She wrapped her arms around my neck and said, "Ethan, I'll never forget what you've done for me. Not in this lifetime." A month later, her company was registered. 2 more months passed. And she told me, "Ethan, I want to marry you. I know I don't deserve you. But I truly love you. I don't want the Carter family's money. I just want to be your wife." At the time, I thought she was capable and sensible. So we got married. The wedding was low-key. We invited only close family and friends from both sides. Olivia made no demands. She even took the initiative to sign the prenuptial agreement. "I have my own career," she said. "I won't depend on anyone to live." When she said those words, her eyes were firm. I thought I had found a suitable partner. In the first year after we married, Olivia truly worked hard. Her company grew from a small team of a few people to more than 30 employees. She landed several major projects and began to make a name for herself in the industry. Every time she had a business event, she would ask me to come. "Ethan, this client is very important. Help me meet them." As the CEO of Carter Group, my presence did give her plenty of help. Many partners were willing to give her a chance out of respect for me. Her company grew bigger and bigger. And I was happy for her. But slowly, I began to notice things were wrong. Olivia came home later and later. Sometimes she returned at 1 or 2 in the morning, reeking of alcohol. "Another client dinner tonight?" I asked her. "Of course. That's how this industry works. How do you talk business without drinking?" She yawned and fell asleep without even showering. On weekends, she was rarely home. Either she was working overtime at the office or meeting clients outside. We spoke less and less. Sometimes we barely exchanged a few words in an entire week. I suggested having dinner together, but she always pushed it off. "Ethan, I'm really busy. Let's wait until this stretch is over." But that busy stretch never ended. In the second year, her company moved into a new office building. I attended the opening celebration. That was where I met a young man. He wore a well-fitted suit, had delicate features, and behaved politely. "Mr. Carter." "Hello. I'm Mason Reed, Ms. Bennett's assistant." He extended his hand. And I shook it. His hand was soft. Not like the hand of someone who worked hard. Mason is very capable. He handled this entire office move himself. Olivia stood beside him, smiling as she introduced him. The way she looked at Mason was different. I recognized that look. Because when we first met, she had once looked at me the same way. After that, I saw Mason more often. Whenever Olivia attended events, he was always by her side. "Mason, grab my purse." "Mason, get me a glass of water." "Mason, what do you think of this proposal?" Her attitude toward him went beyond an ordinary boss-subordinate relationship. I once asked her, "Are you very close to that assistant?" Olivia didn't care at all. "He's my best assistant. Of course I should treat him well. And he's young. He doesn't have anyone to rely on out here. It's only right that I look after him a little." She said it as if it were perfectly natural. I did not ask further. Because at that time, I still trusted her. The turning point came 3 months ago. That night, I returned from a business trip out of state. Originally, I had no intention of going home. I planned to go straight to the office to deal with some documents. But my assistant reminded me, "Mr. Carter, you haven't been home in a week. Mrs. Carter may be upset." I thought about it and went home. When I opened the door, the house was quiet. The living room lights were off. Only a faint glow came from the hallway. I changed my shoes and was about to go upstairs. Just then, I heard Olivia's voice. She was on the phone, speaking softly, with a smile in her voice. "Don't worry. He won't find out. His head is full of company business. When would he ever have time to care about me? All right. I won't talk anymore. See you tomorrow." I miss you too." That last sentence stopped me in my tracks. I pushed open the bedroom door. Olivia was sitting on the bed, holding her phone. When she saw me, she clearly froze. "Why are you back? Didn't you say you'd be back tomorrow?" "My schedule changed." I looked at her. "Who were you talking to just now?" "A coworker. Something about work." She calmly set the phone aside. Talking about work this late? Yes. There's an important meeting tomorrow. We needed to prepare materials. She said it naturally. I could not see any flaw. I did not keep asking. I turned and went into the bathroom. Standing under the shower. Cold water pouring over my body. That sentence kept replaying in my mind. I miss you too. Would she say that to a coworker? I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at Olivia asleep beside me. Her sleeping face was peaceful. There was even a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. The next day, I hired a private investigator to look into her. A week later, the investigator placed a thick file in front of me. Mr. Carter, everything you asked for is here. I opened the folder. Inside were photo after photo. In those pictures, Olivia and Mason appeared together in all kinds of places. They ate together, watched movies together, went shopping together. In one picture, Mason's hand was wrapped around Olivia's waist. In another, Olivia stood on tiptoe and kissed Mason on the cheek. There was also a surveillance screenshot of them entering a hotel. The timestamp showed that it was a night when I had been out of town on business. How long have they been together? My voice was very calm. The investigator flipped through his notes. Based on our investigation, at least a year and a half. At first, they were careful. Later, they became more and more brazen. For the past 6 months, they've been meeting almost every week. I nodded. I understand. You can go. After the investigator left, I sat alone in my office. Outside the window was the bustling nightscape of the city. Lights from countless homes shining below. But I felt unbearably cold. A year and a half. For a full year and a half. She had played the role of a loyal wife in front of me. And behind my back, she had been intimate with another man. I thought about all those nights when she came home late. I thought about how she always used business dinners as an excuse. I thought about how she had become colder and colder toward me. So it had all been fake. I did not expose her immediately. Instead, I began quietly investigating her company. Soon, I found problems. Aurora Media's development over the past 3 years looked smooth on the surface. In reality, its finances were a complete mess. Most of the big projects she had taken on were losing money. The company had survived entirely on support from Carter Group's resources. The clients I introduced to her. The doors I opened for her. The costs I helped her save. She had never mentioned any of it. In front of outsiders. She always said she had built everything from nothing. She said she had fought her way to today's success with her own ability. She never mentioned my help. Even more ironic. Mason had the highest salary in her company. $15,000 a month. For an assistant in the media industry. That was an outrageous number. Besides that, she had given Mason a $150,000 luxury car. She reimbursed all of his living expenses. All of that money came from the company accounts. And the company's startup capital came from me. In other words, she had been using my money to support her lover. As I looked at those documents, I suddenly found it ridiculous. What had I been doing for the past 3 years? I thought I had married an independent, strong woman. I never imagined she had simply treated me as an ATM. As a stepping stone for her career. I began paying attention to her movements. I discovered that she and Mason met far more frequently than I had imagined. Sometimes she said she was meeting clients. But she was actually meeting Mason. Sometimes she said she was working late at the office. But she was actually getting a hotel room with him. She lied to me too easily. Because she knew I trusted her. Or rather, I was too busy to suspect her. Carter Group's business stretched across the country. Every day, I had countless matters to handle. How could I have the energy to manage her private life? She understood that. And that was why she dared to act so recklessly. 2 months ago, I found a receipt at home. It was from a jewelry store. It read, "One men's diamond ring. Valued at roughly $100,000. I held the receipt and asked her, "What is this?" Olivia glanced at it. And her expression shifted slightly. "Oh, that. A wedding gift for an important client. $100,000 gift. That client is very important. He could bring the company millions in business." She sounded completely justified. I did not ask further. I only put the receipt away. Later, I checked the jewelry store's records. The buyer of that ring was indeed Olivia Bennett. But the customization information said, "For the one I love most." It also requested that two names be engraved on it: Olivia Bennett and Mason Reed. When I saw that information, I was in the middle of a meeting. My phone vibrated, and my assistant sent me the investigation results. I stared at those two names on the screen, and suddenly, I understood everything. She planned to marry Mason. That was why she was in such a hurry to divorce me. I began preparing. First, I arranged for the legal department to clear out every cooperative relationship between Carter Group and Aurora Media. Take back every client resource we introduced to Olivia Bennett. Notify them in Carter Group's name that we will no longer endorse Aurora Media. The legal director hesitated. "Mr. Carter." Mrs. Carter sighed. "Do as I said." My tone allowed no argument. Then I contacted several partners in the industry. These people had long-term business relationships with Carter Group. They would listen to me. "For the projects involving Aurora Media, I'd like you to reconsider the partner." They all gave me respect. "Don't worry, Mr. Carter. I understand." After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair. All these years, the reason Olivia had been able to thrive in the media circle was largely because of my connections. Now that I was taking those resources back, what would happen to her company? I knew very clearly. Without clients, without cash flow, without industry resources, Aurora Media would not survive 3 months. I also had someone investigate Mason's background. That investigation uncovered quite a few interesting things. Mason Reed. Full name Mason Reed. 25 years old. Bachelor's degree. Ordinary family background. After graduating college, he had worked as an assistant at several companies but never lasted long. His longest job had lasted only half a year. 3 years ago, he came to Aurora Media for an interview. At that time, the company had just been founded and urgently needed staff. Olivia interviewed him and hired him on the spot. At first, he was just an ordinary employee with a salary of $750 a month. But very quickly, he became Olivia's personal assistant. His salary rose to $4,500, then $7,500, then $12,000, then $15,000. In just 1 year, his salary increased 20-fold. And his duties at the company, to put it plainly, were to keep Olivia company. Accompany her to meetings. Accompany her to business dinners. Accompany her on business trips. Other employees had plenty to say about it. In private, they all said Mason had climbed up through improper means. But Olivia did not care about those rumors at all. She even said publicly at the company's annual party, "Mason is my most capable assistant. All of you should learn from him." That kind of protection had already gone beyond the boundary between superior and subordinate. I looked at Mason's photo in the file. A young face. Sharp calculation in his eyes. I had seen plenty of people like him. They did not have much ability, but they were very good at pleasing women. Especially successful women who longed to be worshipped. Olivia was probably trapped by that exact thing. A man 8 years younger than her obeyed her every word. He treated her like a queen. That feeling of being needed made her addicted. And with me, she could not get that feeling. I was too busy and ignored her emotions. I was too powerful and made her feel invisible. So she turned and threw herself into Mason's arms. I understood her choice. But I did not accept her betrayal. This afternoon, Olivia suddenly said she wanted a divorce. I knew she had finished preparing. She thought her company was already on track. She thought that even without me, she could still live very well. She had even begun planning her wedding with Mason. The latest report from the investigator showed that she had already booked a hotel. The date was next month. She could not wait to give Mason an official status. That was why she came to me today for the divorce. At the county clerk's office, I saw her expression very clearly. It was a look of relief. And a barely concealed excitement. She thought she was finally free. That she could finally be with Mason openly. When I signed my name on the divorce decree, her eyes lit up. She grabbed the decree without even looking at me. That back view was resolute. Unfortunately, she did not know. Starting today, her nightmare had only just begun. I dialed the legal department. My voice was as calm as if I were commenting on the weather. Within 3 days, Remove Aurora Media from the industry. Terminate every partnership. Cut off every resource channel. And investigate every financial transaction from the company over the past 3 years. I want to see every account. Olivia turned around. Her face white as paper. She rushed toward me, trying to snatch my phone. Ethan Carter. Are you insane? I stepped aside and continued speaking into the phone. Also, notify all major media platforms. Aurora Media is suspected of financial irregularities. Recommend suspending all cooperation. Ethan Carter. Olivia screamed. You can't do this. I built that company myself. I hung up and looked at her. You did build it yourself. But I provided the startup capital. I introduced the clients. I helped you establish the industry network. Now I'm taking those things back. Is there a problem? Olivia swayed. You're taking revenge. Revenge. I smiled. I'm only taking back what belongs to me. You used my money to support your lover. You used my resources to grow your company. Now that we're divorced, did you think you could keep using them? Olivia's expression changed again and again. You knew. When did I not know? I looked at the panic on her face and suddenly found it funny. You thought you hid it well. Olivia Bennett. I was just too lazy to expose you. She took a step back and leaned against the wall. Then why didn't you say something earlier? What would have been the point? I straightened my sleeve. I wanted to see how long you could keep acting. I wanted to see whether you would find your conscience and confess to me on your own. And what happened? You didn't confess. You only became worse. You even planned to marry him immediately after the divorce. I pointed toward the door. Where is your assistant right now? Is he waiting outside? Waiting for you to take the divorce decree and go surprise him. Tears fell from Olivia's eyes. Ethan. Don't call me Ethan. I cut her off. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. You wanted freedom, didn't you? I gave it to you. But at the same time, I'm taking back everything that belongs to me. I walked past her toward the door. Ethan Carter. You can't treat me like this. Olivia shouted behind me. I gave you a lot during these 3 years too. I accompanied you to all kinds of events and helped you maintain your connections. I contributed too. I stopped and turned to look at her. You're right. You did contribute. That's why in the divorce agreement, I didn't ask you to return the $3 million in startup capital. Consider it payment for these 3 years. As for the future of your company, that will depend on your own ability. I pushed the door open. The sunlight was glaring. Outside, Mason was leaning against a white Porsche. When he saw me come out, the smile on his face stiffened. I walked to him and stopped. You're Mason. He swallowed. Mr. Carter. Nice to meet you. I extended my hand. Mason froze for a moment. Then reached out too. I held his hand and applied a little pressure. Take good care of her. But let me remind you of one thing. Without Carter Group's support, how long her company lasts will depend on your ability. I let go and patted his shoulder. Good luck. After saying that, I walked away without looking back. Behind me came Olivia's sobs. But that had nothing to do with me anymore. When I returned to the company, my assistant had already prepared the documents. Mr. Carter. This is the full cooperation list for Aurora Media. I have notified the relevant departments according to your instructions. I flipped through the file. Aurora Media currently had 12 projects under negotiation. 8 of them were clients introduced through Carter Group. The remaining 4 were also indirectly connected to Carter Group. Terminate all of these projects. For the signed contracts, begin breach procedures. We will cover the penalties. My assistant looked at me in surprise. Mr. Carter. The penalties are not a small sum. I know. I signed my name. But this money is worth spending. Have the finance department prepare. Aurora Media may file for bankruptcy. When their assets go to auction, I want to buy them all. My assistant nodded. I understand. Over the next 3 days, Aurora Media suffered a series of disasters. First, its biggest client suddenly terminated cooperation. That was a $4.5 million project already halfway completed. The client demanded a refund and compensation for losses. Immediately after that, several other clients withdrew their investments one after another. Their reasons varied, but the result was the same. Aurora Media's cash flow instantly broke. Olivia called me like crazy. More than 30 calls in one day. I did not answer a single one. She came to the company to find me. Security stopped her outside. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett. Mr. Carter has instructed us not to see anyone. She stood downstairs for 2 hours. In the end, security asked her to leave. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in my office and looked down at her. Her figure looked so small. Just like 3 years ago, when she first came to Carter Group. Back then, she had also stood downstairs looking up at this building. Her eyes had been full of longing. Now, there was only despair in them. My assistant walked in. Mr. Carter, Olivia Bennett's assistant, Mason Reed, is here. He says he wants to see you. I turned around. Let him in. A few minutes later, Mason was brought into the office. He looked much more haggard. His eyes were bloodshot. Mr. Carter, please let Olivia go. He dropped straight to his knees. It was my fault. I seduced her. If you want revenge, take it out on me. Don't make things hard for her company. I looked at the young man kneeling on the floor. You think I'm taking revenge? Isn't that what this is? Mason lifted his head. You're doing this because you want Olivia to come back to you. Right. You still love her. That's why you're acting like this. I laughed. I laughed so hard tears almost came out. You really think too highly of yourself. I sat down on the sofa. Why would I want her to come back? She betrayed me. She kept a lover behind my back. Why would I still want her? Then why are you attacking her company? Mason asked in confusion. Because that company was mine to begin with. I lit a cigarette. The startup capital was mine. The client resources were mine. The industry connections were mine. She merely borrowed those things. Now I'm taking them back. Is there a problem? But Olivia put 3 years of hard work into it. Her hard work. I interrupted him. Her hard work went into buying you a ring. Into giving you a luxury car. Into paying for hotel rooms with you. All of that money came from the company accounts. And the company's money, at its root, came from me. Mason's face turned deathly pale. I didn't know. Of course you knew. I flicked ash from my cigarette. You two put on quite a show together. Unfortunately, you chose the wrong target. Mr. Carter, I'm truly willing to bear all the consequences. Mason knocked his forehead to the floor. Please let Olivia go. She's under a lot of pressure right now. She's about to collapse. I'm afraid she'll do something stupid. I looked at him and suddenly found it ridiculous. You love her very much. Yes. Mason said it without hesitation. I'd do anything for her. Good. I stood. Aurora Media currently owes $2.25 million in outside debt. Go help her pay it. And there are the company's breach penalties. Roughly $3 million. You can pay those too. That's $5.25 million altogether. Can you come up with it? Mason froze. His lips moved. But he could not say a word. If you can't, then don't stand here making big promises. I walked up to him. Love has a price. You thought sleeping with her a few times and saying sweet words was enough. Real love means standing with her through hardship. Can you do that? Mason lowered his head. Get out. I returned behind my desk. Tell Olivia to take care of herself. Mason stood up and stumbled toward the door. When he reached it, he looked back at me. Mr. Carter, do you regret it? Regret what? Regret marrying her. I thought for a moment. I do. But I don't regret marrying her. I regret trusting her. That is the lesson I learned. Mason opened his mouth. But in the end, he said nothing. He left. The office was empty again. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. These 3 years had been like a dream. Now the dream was over. It was time to face reality. 1 week later, Aurora Media filed for bankruptcy liquidation. Olivia sat outside the company entrance for an entire day. She watched the employees pack their things and leave. She watched everything that had once belonged to her get emptied out piece by piece. Mason stayed beside her. Both of them were silent. I had someone take photos and send them to me. In the photos, Olivia looked haggard. Her eyes were hollow. The confidence and pride she once had were completely gone. My assistant asked me, Mr. Carter, are we really going to buy her entire company? Of course. I looked at the photos. This was my investment. It can't be wasted. What about Olivia Bennet? Her. I tossed the photos aside. She has nothing to do with me anymore. At Aurora Media's asset auction, I sent someone to attend. In the end, we bought all the assets for $1.2 million, including office equipment, client resources, ongoing projects, the company brand, and its trademarks. Olivia stood outside the auction venue. When she saw my representative raise the bidding paddle, tears fell from her eyes. She finally understood. From beginning to end, she had only been a pawn. She thought she was building a business. In reality, she had only been working for me. She thought she had found true love. In reality, she had only been used by a man. She thought she could escape me. In reality, she had never escaped my control. After the auction ended, I went to the site. When Olivia saw me, she tried to come over. My bodyguard stopped her. "Ethan Carter, why are you doing this to me?" she shouted from behind the bodyguards. "How did I wrong you? I only wanted my own life. Was I wrong?" I stopped and looked at her. "You weren't wrong. Everyone has the right to pursue happiness. But," I stepped closer, "you shouldn't have done it through deception. You shouldn't have cheated during our marriage. You shouldn't have used my money to support your lover. You shouldn't have pretended to be devoted in front of me, only to turn around and throw yourself into someone else's arms. You did all of that. So now, you are paying the price." Olivia's tears would not stop. "I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Ethan, can we start over? I'll change. I swear." "It's too late." I turned to leave. Some things, once missed, are missed. There is no second chance. "Ethan Carter," she shouted behind me. "You'll regret this. You will definitely regret this." I did not look back. Because I knew I would not regret it. This marriage had been a mistake from the beginning. Correcting it now was simply restoring things to normal. When I returned to the company, the legal department had already organized all the materials. "Mr. Carter, Aurora Media's financial records for the past 3 years are all here. We found some problems." I took the file. "Speak." "Olivia Bennet is suspected of embezzling company funds." The legal director pointed to a report. "Over the past 3 years, she withdrew nearly $750,000 from the company accounts under various names. The use of those funds is unclear. And she also took out a $1.5 million loan in the company's name. That money is currently missing." I looked at those numbers and could not describe what I felt. 750,000. 1.5 million. That was enough money for ordinary people to live on for a lifetime. But she had squandered it just like that. "Call the police." I closed the file. The necessary procedures still need to be followed. "Mr. Carter. In that case, Olivia Bennet may go to prison." The legal director reminded me. That was her choice. I stood. When you do wrong, you bear the consequences. That is the rule. 3 days later, Olivia was taken away by the police. The charges were embezzlement and contract fraud. When she was taken away, Mason cried beside her. "Olivia, I'll wait for you. I'll definitely wait until you get out." Olivia glanced at him and smiled bitterly. She knew this man would not wait for her. Waiting was the most torturous thing. And Mason did not have that kind of patience. Sure enough, in less than a month, Mason found a new job. He became an assistant at another media company. His boss was a strong woman in her 40s. Divorced. Rich. Lonely. Exactly like Olivia back then. He started the same trick again. Attentive. Considerate. Good with words. Very quickly, he gained that female boss's trust. Someone told Olivia, who was being detained, about it. She sat in the detention center for 3 full days. For 3 days. She did not eat. She did not speak. She only sat on the bed, staring blankly. When her lawyer came to see her, she asked one question. I really was stupid, wasn't I? The lawyer did not know how to answer. Olivia laughed at herself. I thought I was smart. I thought I could keep one foot in both worlds. I thought I could use Ethan Carter's resources and then walk away clean. And what happened? I lost completely. My company is gone. My freedom is gone. My love is gone. I have nothing left. Her tears fell again. But this time, no one would sympathize with her. Because all of this had been caused by her own choices. Olivia was sentenced to 5 years. The charges were confirmed. And the evidence was solid. She did not appeal again. She accepted the sentence. On the day of sentencing, I did not go. But my assistant sent me a photo. In the photo, Olivia wore a prison uniform. Her hair had been cut short. She looked several years older. When she looked toward the camera, there was no light left in her eyes. Like stagnant water. As I looked at the photo, I suddenly thought of 3 years ago. Back then, the light in her eyes had been almost dazzling. She said she wanted to build a career. She said she wanted to prove her abilities. She said she wanted to become an independent woman. And now, she had indeed proven herself. She had proven her own stupidity. Half a year later, one afternoon, I was handling documents in my office. My assistant knocked and came in, wearing a strange expression. "Mr. Carter, there's a woman downstairs claiming to be Olivia Bennett's mother." I looked up. "What does she want?" "She says she has something important to tell you." I thought for a moment. "Send her up." A few minutes later, a woman in her 50s walked into my office. She was dressed simply, carrying an old cloth bag. Her face was full of hardship. "Are you Mr. Carter?" she asked carefully. "I am. Please sit." I pointed to the sofa. She sat down, both hands tightly clutching the cloth bag. "Mr. Carter, I'm Olivia's mother. My last name is Bennett too. I know Olivia did wrong. I'm not here to beg you to forgive her. I just want to ask, did she really embezzle that much money?" I nodded. "The evidence is solid." Mrs. Bennett's tears fell. But where did all that money go?" "She never gave me a penny. When her father was sick and hospitalized, I went to her to borrow money. And she said the company's cash was tight. Where did all that money go?" I fell silent. I had been thinking about that question too. $750,000 in cash. A $1.5 million loan. The destination of that money was indeed suspicious. "Mr. Carter, I know something," Mrs. Bennett suddenly said. "Olivia has a ledger. It records all the expenses. She hid it in the safe at home. The password is her birthday. If you want to know the truth, you can go look." I looked at this bitterly pleading mother. She was not defending her daughter. She simply wanted to know the truth. "I'll go look." I nodded. Mrs. Bennett stood and bowed deeply. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. No matter what Olivia did, she is still my daughter. As her mother, I should apologize on her behalf." After saying that, she turned and left. I was left sitting alone in my office. I thought of Olivia's home. The place where we had lived together for 3 years. After the divorce, I had never returned. Everything there had been sealed away. I picked up my car keys and walked out of the office. Half an hour later, I stood before that familiar door. When I pushed it open, a layer of dust covered the inside. The furniture was still there, but there was no trace of life anymore. I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. The safe was hidden at the very back of the closet. I entered the password, and the safe opened. Inside was a black notebook. I picked it up and opened the first page. It was densely filled with all kinds of expenses. I read page after page, and my expression grew uglier, because I discovered that most of the money had gone to Mason. Buying him a car, buying him a house, buying him luxury goods. There was even a $450,000 investment in a project Mason wanted to do. That project had failed long ago. I kept flipping and suddenly saw a special page of records. It read, "Medical treatment for Mason's father, $75,000. Retirement support for Mason's mother, $45,000. Tuition for Mason's younger brother, $30,000. I froze. Mason had told me his family background was ordinary. But from these records, his family was living quite well. And all of it had been given by Olivia. I closed the notebook and suddenly understood something. Olivia had not been tricked by Mason's charm alone. She had willingly given everything to him. She thought she had found true love. She thought Mason truly treated her well. So she gave him all the money. Including the money she embezzled from the company. Including the money she borrowed through loans. She poured everything she had into making Mason live well. But Mason, after something happened to her, He immediately found a new backer. He was not even willing to wait. Standing in that empty room, I suddenly felt Olivia was pathetic. She had been smart her whole life. Yet she fell because of one man. She thought she was in love. In reality, she was simply being used. I took out my phone and dialed a number. Help me investigate all of Mason Reed's assets. His real estate, vehicles, bank accounts, and his family's situation. The more detailed, the better. After hanging up, I looked at the notebook in my hand. It recorded everything Olivia had given. It also recorded her foolishness. I sighed, put the notebook back in the safe, and left that place full of memories. At the door, I looked back once. This home had completely become a thing of the past. 2 days later, the investigation results came out. Mason did indeed have a house in his name, valued at $300,000. He also had a car worth $120,000. There was $45,000 in his bank account. His parents lived in a villa back home, worth $225,000. His younger brother was studying abroad, costing $75,000 a year. All of that added up to more than $750,000. Every cent had been given by Olivia. And what had Mason given Olivia in return? Betrayal, abandonment, coldness. Looking at this report, I suddenly made a decision. I would make Mason pay the price. Not for Olivia. For justice. I had the lawyer draft a lawsuit. We sued Mason for fraud. The reason was that he had obtained Olivia's property under the guise of love. The amount was huge. And the circumstances were serious. At the same time, I had someone find Mason's new boss. We told her everything he had done before. After hearing it, that female boss fired Mason on the spot. She also called the police, saying he was suspected of fraud. When Mason was taken away by the police, his face was deathly pale. He probably never imagined he would have this day too. He thought he could go on forever like this, using his young face and sweet words to deceive one lonely woman after another. But he forgot. What goes around comes around. When you do wrong, you must pay the price. In court, Mason knelt on the floor and begged for mercy. Your Honor, I know I was wrong. I'm willing to return all the money. Please give me one chance. But the judge ignored him. In the end, Mason was sentenced to 3 years. The charge was fraud. At sentencing, Mrs. Bennett sat in the gallery. She watched Mason being taken away, tears streaming down her face. If Olivia hears this, I don't know what she'll do. She murmured to herself. I sat beside her and said nothing, because I knew Olivia would suffer greatly. The person she loved had only been a liar. Everything she had given had been a joke. But that was reality. Cruel, yet true. After Mason went to prison, I had someone tell Olivia the news. When she heard it in prison, she completely broke down. She did not believe it. She refused to believe it. She thought I must be taking revenge on Mason. She thought I must be lying. She went on a hunger strike for 3 days. Only after persuasion from the prison guards did she begin eating again. But her mental state was terrible. She sat in her cell all day, staring blankly. She did not speak, did not communicate, like a walking corpse. The prison psychologist tried to counsel her, but she said nothing. She only mechanically repeated her daily labor. Eating, sleeping, working, like an emotionless machine. Half a year later, Mrs. Bennett applied to visit her. Mother and daughter looked at each other through the glass. Mrs. Bennett's tears would not stop falling. Olivia, you have to be strong. Mom will wait for you to come out. We'll start over. Okay. Olivia looked at her mother, her eyes hollow. Mom, I was wrong. Her voice was hoarse. I was really wrong. I shouldn't have been so greedy. I shouldn't have been so stupid. I shouldn't have destroyed my life for someone who wasn't worth it. Mrs. Bennett gripped the phone, sobbing too hard to speak. My child, as long as you know you were wrong, that's enough. Life is still long. You still have a chance. Olivia shook her head. No, Mom. I have nothing left. My company is gone. My reputation is gone. My freedom is gone. What do I still have? Her tears finally fell. This was the first time she had cried since going to prison. Before this, she had been forcing herself to stay strong. refusing to show weakness. But in front of her mother, she finally collapsed. I regret it so much. If time could turn back, I would never do those stupid things. I would cherish everything I had. But now, it's all too late. Mrs. Bennet looked at her daughter's pain, and her heart felt as if it had been cut with a knife. Olivia, promise Mom. Reform yourself properly and try to get out early. When you come out, it'll be just the two of us depending on each other and living a peaceful life. Stop chasing those empty things. Olivia nodded. I will. Mom. I definitely will. After visiting time ended, Mrs. Bennet left the prison. She stood at the gate for a long time, looking at those high walls. Her heart filled with sorrow. Her daughter had once been so proud, so outstanding. Now she had fallen to this state, all because of a moment of greed and stupidity. Through my lawyer, I sent Olivia a copy of the black notebook. When she received it, she froze completely. She opened the notebook and looked at each record. She had written all of those entries herself. She remembered clearly where every dollar had gone. She had thought she was giving for love. But now, looking at it, she had only been used. She closed the notebook and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. Tears slid from the corners. This was the greatest irony of her life. She had thought herself clever. She thought she could use Ethan Carter's resources to build a business. She thought she could keep one foot in two boats and win both career and love. And what happened? She had been used by Mason. Her money, her feelings, her trust, all of it had been cheated away by him. And she had foolishly believed it was true love. She thought of Ethan Carter. She thought of the man she had betrayed. In her eyes, Ethan had been too busy, too cold, and not romantic. But only now did she understand. What Ethan had given her was true respect and trust. He never interfered with her company. He gave her freedom, gave her space. He believed she could run her business well. And what had she done? She had taken that trust for granted. She had used his resources and betrayed his feelings. She thought she was smart. In reality, she was the stupidest one. Olivia held the notebook tightly in her arms. Suddenly, she wanted to write Ethan a letter. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to tell him she was wrong. She picked up a pen and paper. But she did not know what to write. Words of apology seemed so pale and powerless. The thing she had done could no longer be repaired. In the end, she wrote only one sentence. Ethan, I'm sorry. She gave the letter to a prison guard and asked them to mail it for her. 1 week later, the letter was returned. Written on it were the words, addressee unknown. Olivia looked at the returned letter and smiled bitterly. That was right. In Ethan Carter's world, she no longer existed. He would not accept her letter. Just as she would never appear in his life again. Everything was over. Day after day passed. In prison, Olivia learned many things. She learned to follow rules. Learned to control her emotions. Learned to reflect on her mistakes. She performed well at work in prison. She never caused trouble and never complained. Every day, she completed her assigned tasks seriously. In the prison library, she read many books. Some were about entrepreneurship. Some were about life. Others were about how to start over. In one book, she saw a sentence. The greatest failure in life is not falling down, but never daring to run. She underlined that sentence. Then she wrote a line beside it. I ran. And I fell. But at least I tried. 2 years later, because of good behavior, she received a reduced sentence. On the day she was released, Mrs. Bennet waited at the gate. Mother and daughter hugged each other and cried. Mom. I'm out. Olivia's voice choked. You're out. That's all that matters. Mrs. Bennet patted her back. From now on, we'll live properly. Olivia nodded. She looked around at the world outside. The sky was still the same sky. The earth was still the same earth. But she was no longer the woman she had been. She had become more mature, more steady. She understood better what truly mattered. After leaving prison, Olivia did not return to her original city. She and her mother moved to a small town. There, no one knew her. No one knew her past. She could start over. She opened a small bookstore in town. The shop was not big. Only a little over 200 square feet. But it was arranged warmly. Every morning, she cleaned the store and organized the books. She received the customers who came and went. Life was simple, but fulfilling. Sometimes, she would think of those 3 glorious years. She would think of everything she once had. She would think of the weight the name Olivia Bennet once carried in the industry. But all of that had become the past. Now she was only an ordinary bookstore owner, living an ordinary person's life. That was good too. At least she no longer had to worry about losing anything. Because she no longer had anything left to lose. One afternoon, a young woman came into the bookstore. She wore professional clothes and looked like a city office worker. "Ma'am, I'm looking for a book about starting a business." Olivia looked up and saw a familiar shadow. That young woman's eyes were exactly like hers had been back then. Full of ambition. Full of desire. "You want to start a business?" Olivia asked. "Yes. I've been at my company for 5 years. And I think it's time to go out and try something of my own." The young woman spoke excitedly. "I already have a business plan. I'm only missing the startup capital. My boyfriend said he'll support me. He knows a lot of people in the industry." Listening to those words, Olivia's heart stirred. This young woman was just like the old her. Full of confidence. But unaware of how many traps lay ahead. "What does your boyfriend do?" she asked. "He's a general manager at a company. He's very capable." The young woman said it proudly. "He said he'll introduce clients to me and provide resources. With his support, I'll definitely succeed." Olivia looked at her and suddenly wanted to say something. But when the words reached her mouth, she swallowed them back. Everyone had their own road to walk. She could not deny someone else's dream just because of her own failure. "This book is good. You can take a look." She handed the young woman a book. The young woman took it and flipped through a few pages. "Thank you, ma'am. I'll buy it." After paying, the young woman prepared to leave. When she reached the door, Olivia suddenly called out to her. "Mississippi, may I say one thing to you?" The young woman turned back. "Of course. Starting a business is a good thing. But you must stay clear-headed," Olivia said seriously. "Don't place all your hopes on someone else. Especially a man. The only person you can truly rely on is yourself." The young woman froze for a moment. Then smiled. "Ma'am, do you have some kind of story?" Olivia smiled too. "I suppose I do. A very long and very stupid story. But that is all in the past." The young woman nodded and pushed the door open to leave. Olivia stood by the window and watched her back. She hoped the girl would not repeat her mistakes. She hoped she would walk more steadily and go farther. Another year passed. The bookstore's business grew better and better. Olivia's reputation in town grew better too. Everyone knew there was a good bookstore owner in town. Kind, quiet, but always able to give just the right advice. A young man wanted to quit his job to chase his dream. Olivia told him, "Dreams matter. But so does bread. Before chasing your dream, make sure you won't starve." A woman wanted to give up her job for her boyfriend. Olivia told her, "Love requires giving. But don't lose yourself. Someone who truly loves you won't make you give up everything." A middle-aged man failed in business and could not let it go. Olivia told him, "Failure isn't frightening. What's frightening is losing the courage to start over. As long as you're alive, there's still a chance." She turned her own experience into advice for others. She used her failure to help others avoid the same traps. Slowly, she realized her mindset had changed. She no longer resented Ethan Carter. Because if not for his decisiveness, she might have kept walking farther and farther down the wrong road. She no longer resented Mason either. Because she had been the one who chose to believe him. The one who chose to give to him. She could only resent herself. Her greed. Her stupidity. But now, even that resentment had faded. Because she understood one truth. Life is a process of trial and error. What matters is not how many mistakes you make. What matters is whether you can learn from them. Whether you can stand up again after falling. 3 years later, one day, a well-dressed middle-aged man came into the bookstore. He stood in front of the shelves for a long time. Finally, he picked up a book and walked to the register. Olivia looked up and froze completely. Mr. Carter. Standing in front of her was Ethan Carter. 3 years had passed. And he looked much more mature. There was some gray at his temples, and fine lines at the corners of his eyes. But those eyes were still deep. "Long time no see," Ethan said calmly. Olivia's hands trembled. She had never imagined she would meet him here. "Why? Why are you here?" "Passing through." Ethan placed the book on the register. "How much is this book?" Olivia glanced at the title. "Starting over. $3. Her voice was very soft. Ethan took out his wallet and pulled out a $20 bill. "Keep the change." After saying that, he picked up the book and turned to leave. "Wait." Olivia called out to him. Ethan stopped. But he did not turn around. I want to say I'm sorry." Tears flowed down Olivia's face. "These past 3 years. I've regretted it every day. I regret what I did back then. I regret hurting you. I know saying sorry is useless now, but I still want to say it. I'm sorry. Ethan. I'm truly sorry." Ethan was silent for a very long time. So long that Olivia thought he would not respond. But in the end, he still spoke. "I forgive you." His voice was calm. "Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because I don't want the past to trouble me anymore. You did wrong. And you paid the price. That is enough. As for forgiveness, it doesn't really matter anymore. Because there is no relationship between us now." He pushed open the door and walked into the sunlight. Olivia stood behind the register, watching his back. Her tears would not stop. She knew this might be the last time she would ever see him. From now on, they would truly be strangers. There would be no connection between them anymore. But that was fine. She did not deserve to have him. All she could do was live well. Use the rest of her life to redeem her sins. After Ethan walked out of the bookstore, he stood on the street. He looked at the book in his hand and gave a bitter smile. Starting over. He had not picked up this book by accident. He knew Olivia needed it. 3 years ago, when he learned Olivia had been released from prison, he had someone check where she had gone. He knew she had opened a bookstore in this small town. He knew she lived a hard life, but a grounded one. Originally, he had not planned to come see her. But today, passing through here, he still could not resist going in to take a look. He wanted to know what had become of that once proud woman. As a result, he saw a completely different Olivia Bennett. The sharpness from back then was gone. The ambition from back then was gone. Only peace and calm remained. She really had changed. She was no longer the woman who would do anything to reach her goals. She had become someone who knew how to reflect and cherish. That kind of change was actually good. Ethan put the book in his car and started the engine. He knew he had truly let go. He had let go of that marriage. Let go of those grievances. Let go of all